folks, welcome back to the channel. Trying something a little bit different this week. Getting prepared to go to Canada again next year. So here's a blue-black intruder designed to take on some steelhead. Nice fly, really good fun to tie, and we'll certainly hopefully get a few fish on the other side of the pond. Let's get stuck right into it. Okay folks, we've got 1.5 inch outer tubing and a little bit of inner tubing here, both from Sean Stanton. Just getting some black uni 6/0 down, working with a slightly thicker thread here to make sure we can clamp down on these materials. Just getting a good few wraps in at the connection point, and then also going to add in a little bit of super glue, just build up that run between the two tubes, make sure it's nice and seamless whenever we come back up to this point. Just build this up to a point where you're happy with it, you've got a nice connection, and then when you're happy to do so, run your thread all the way down and leave yourself a good, I'm going to say 10mm at the back, just to give yourself space to put your hook into place. Okay, up first we're going to form a dubbing ball. I'm not going to do a dubbing loop at this point, don't think it's needed in fairness. Just make sure you get it nice and tight and stacked on top of each other. This is the Hairline UV Black, which obviously has a sort of blue-black look to it, which is really nice. Build this up to a level that you're happy with, and then pull away any excess. Again, remember this is designed to create something that materials can be pushed up against and flare out, so make sure it's got a nice height to it and a nice bulk, but not too wide. Okay folks, and then from there we're going to come in with this is some black Artic fox. I'm just measuring up roughly where I want this. I want the back end to obviously be bigger than the front as far as the flare out, so the materials need to be a little bit longer. I'm going to catch this in the opposite direction, catching in the base ends and rolling it right round the shank, or tube in this instance. Then I'm going to fold everything back and catch it in, and that will really emphasize and add to the flare out of this material. Just keep pushing it back folks, keep stroking it back and get wraps down in front of it. You don't necessarily want to wrap on top of the Artic fox, but you want to build up wraps in front of it so that it can't come forward anymore. And then when you're happy with it, it should look something like this, where it's sticking out all over the place. Good stuff. And from there folks, then going to grab some, this is some Glacier blue angel hair from Loop. Good couple of strands, just catch it on the top, and then I'm going to fold all of these other pieces back round the sides and round the bottom, just giving yourself a nice bit of coverage. You don't want to be over the top with this, but you want it all round the bow. It's a little bit long, which this stuff will definitely be a little bit long. Just take your scissors to it and cut it to a length that you're happy with. Okay, next up we're going to come in with some, this is Intruder hackle or Rhea, depending what you've got, in black, again from Sean Stanton. Just catching this on, and going to do this in a couple of different sections. You want coverage all around. You don't obviously want to have too much of this, because again you want the back end to have a lot of movement, so don't overload it. Spread it round about, catching it in, and then you'll be good to go. Don't chop away the waist ends at this point, you definitely need to keep these on, so keep these long at this stage. And when you're happy with the Rhea situation, come in with a little bit more flash. This is a single strand of blue and a single strand of purple holographic that I fold in half. Just catching it on the top again with a couple of turns, and then similar to what I did before, just going to fold these down each side and chop them to a length I'm happy with, and then put the scissors through the folded piece at the top. Okay folks, and the last thing that we're going to add on to the rear section of this intruder is some dyed blue Lady Amherst. Don't want to go over the top with this, just 1 or 2 single strands all round about, so you're probably talking about 4 to 6 is what I would recommend. Just spread them out nice and evenly and you'll be good to go. Okay folks, once you're done with the Lady Amherst, run your thread all the way up, catching in all of this material. If you were to cut this short, you're going to end up with this big bump at the back and the body's going to be a disgrace, so don't do that. Catch in as much of this as you can coming forward. Obviously once you get towards those end pieces where it gets a bit raggedy, you're going to have to trim these down, but yeah, definitely catch in a good chunk of this to give yourself a nice even body that very lightly will start to taper once it reaches these points that you've cut away. And once you get to the front, I'd leave yourself 3 to 5 mil in front of that connection point between the tubes, and then run your thread all the way back down. Wind this right up against the materials. You want to make sure this is flaring out, so I'm winding this right up against it nice and tight. Okay folks, next we're going to put the body piece in, which is just a flat braid from Lagerton in this sort of glacial blue, which is really nice. Just catching this on, not too much on, but certainly giving yourself enough to catch it in, and then bring your thread all the way up. I'm keeping this on the spool as I'm winding it. You can cut off a piece if you want, I just find that this is a bit easier for me, no problem at all. Starting at the back as you'd expect, and then just overlapping turns and wind this all the way up. I'm not going to give you a minute of me winding this, so we'll cut to the next piece. And folks, once you've got to the desired point, you're quite happy with the length of the body, you can catch this in with a good few turns and then chop away your excess, ready to go to the next stage at the front of the fly. Okay folks, similar to what we did at the back, I'm going to start with a dubbing ball, this time with the Glacier blue. It doesn't need to be absolutely massive, but certainly give yourself something to flail the materials against. And then we're going to repeat the same process with the Arctic fox, but this time in blue. Don't want it to be as big as the back end, so I'm just measuring this up and then chopping it down. But again, we'll catch it forward and fold it back to give that nice flare out. Okay folks, and then again in a similar vein, I'm going to come back in with the Glacier blue angel hair. Repeat the process, catch it on the top, and then folding it back. Putting a little bit more this time than I did at the back. Again, personal preference. Okay, now we're going to add in some blue Rhea. Again, don't want this to be too long, but again in a similar fashion, catching in a couple of pinches all round about. And then when you're happy with your Rhea, folks, nice sharp pair of scissors, and come in and cut away these ends as close as you can to the thread. Really start to pay attention to the front end of this fly, making sure that it's all nice and tidy, because it will just make the whole thing easier when you come to apply your disc or cone head, etc. Okay, and then again we're going to come in with the blue and purple holographic, just catching this on the top, and again take it down each side. Okay, we're on to the home straight here, folks. Second last material, coming back in with the Lady Amherst. Putting on a little bit more this time, to perhaps double up on some of the application. Again, totally down to your personal preference, but certainly adding a few more. You don't want these to be too long though, don't have them going beyond the Rhea, is what I would recommend. And again, when you're happy with what you've got, nice sharp pair of scissors, come in nice and tight up against that thread and cut these away nice and tight in. So just adding a little bit more wax to the thread at this point, folks. Going to come in with the last material, which is a blue Schlappen hackle, catching this in by the tip end, good few turns, and then folding that tip back, extra security, locking it in and cutting it away. And then from there you're going to look for, I'm going to say 3 to 4 turns just to finish off this fly, folding the whole thing back nicely so it's got a nice profile to it and finishes off that head. And then, folks, when you're happy with what you've got, you can come in and catch this in with 2 turns, nice tight turns in between the fibres, trying to catch too much of it. Fold back the waist end, get 2 turns in front of it and cut it away. And from there, folks, you'll not be able to need a whip finish. I would certainly recommend just getting some super glue onto the thread and doing 3 to 4 turns where you finished off, and then chopping away your thread nice and tight in after a second or two, and your thread will be nicely locked in, it won't be going anywhere. It'll also reduce a little bit of bulk from a thread perspective at the front. Okay, folks, last thing to do is chuck on whatever you're going to put on the front of this fly. So this is a 6mm turbo disc from Future Fly, just getting some glue all round about the front of the tube and onto the thread, and then when you're happy to do so, push this right up against all the materials, nice and firm, as hard as you can really without bending the tube, and give it 5 or 6 seconds, let it go, and hopefully it will look a little bit like this. And there you have it, folks. Once you've chopped away that end piece and melted down the front a little bit, you're good to go. Great fun to tie this. You'll definitely get some fish in Canada. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that sort of good stuff. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, etc. It'd be great to hear from you. Until next time, cheers.